Full house for Hot Sheet today. Everyone, make sure, obviously, you check out baseballamerica.com and get yourself a subscription, but also tune in for the next 30-ish minutes if you want to get caught up in the prospect world. Scott Braun here with Baseball America's JJ Cooper, Geoff Pontes, and Ben Badler right off the jump here for the show. And lastly, before we hit first move, I want to remind everyone that if you have a question, we will take some of those questions live throughout the show and even at the end of the show. But if you hit us 28 minutes into the show with 8 questions, we can't get to them all. So I want to get your brains churning a little bit early today to the people that tune in every time in the live chat, and make sure you get those questions in, and then we'll try to get to some of them later on in the show. With that, let's hit first move. Hey, JJ, let's focus on the pitching side of prospects making impacts in the big leagues. So who do you think can make a significant impact this season for people to keep an eye on? I think this is what sometimes separates baseball from some of the other sports with drafts, right? So in baseball, you do have to wait for most players, prospects, to marinate. In the NFL and the NBA, sometimes that player can make that instant impact for you. With that being said, it's becoming a shorter window. And even for those who have been taking longer to kind of marinate here, JJ, I want to get into guys that can actually help teams that, people might not know about.
The good news is there are more than we're going to name here, because we look at like a guy like Mick Abel and what he did just yesterday, where he outdueled, Pirates lineup he was facing, but he outdueled Paul Skeens. And he's an example of a guy, like you said, sometimes they have to marinate, pitchers have to marinate a little while. He was a first-round pick coming out of high school, and stuff kind of dropped off. When stuff drops off, often the strike throwing also drops off with it. Last year, this time, he was sitting 93, 94, touching 97. Now, yesterday, he was sitting 97, touching 99. It's amazing what that can do for helping everything play up. But so there are more guys who are kind of ready to break in over the next couple of months than there are really guys that we're going to have time to name here. But I'm going to go with an easy one, which is Bubba Chandler, the Pirates right-hander, who, we can debate about. There are several of these guys we're going to talk about that you could debate are, among at least the top pitching prospects still in the minors. In Bubba Chandler's case, he's kind of done most everything you want to see in AAA so far. It's really kind of something where he's getting closer and closer to where you're saying, okay, it's really time now. He's kind of building up his pitch count, but the stuff is just exceptional. He's another guy who's an example. He was a two-way guy in high school. He's also a two-sport guy. Kind of took him a little while to figure out every aspect of being a starting pitcher, but now he just goes out there and utterly dominates with a high 90s fastball that's touched 101, reasonably regularly this year so far. He's going to have some of the best stuff in the majors when he arrives. I don't know if he'll have the best stuff, though, because I would say that Geoff may have the guy who may have the best pure stuff in AAA right now.
Yeah, and I'm going with a guy who's no longer technically a prospect, in Joe Boyle.
Yeah.
Was acquired.
And I was going to say, and Ben's is really good too. So it's all three of these guys have sick stuff. So
well, let's get some competition going here, yeah. Geoff. You go,
there
and then
go.
Ben will see if he can top you.
Sure, yeah. Like I mentioned, Joe Boyle, who was acquired, this offseason by the Rays. I think like immediately, as soon as any pitcher gets acquired by Tampa, we tend to raise an eyebrow a little bit and dig in a little bit deeper. So far, so good. He did have one sort of spot start for the major league club, but I think you look at what he's doing in AAA. The biggest difference has just been the amount of strikes. He has a sub 10% strikeout rate for the first time, probably in his entire career, dating back to his limited experience at Notre Dame, or even on the Cape. And, previous numbers in terms of walk rate for Boyle, over 17% for every single season that he's been a professional, which is, I think, since 2021. So it kind of puts it into perspective. Some of the things that are at the root of this, over the last couple of years, the zone rate has gotten a lot better. He developed the split finger this year with Tampa, ditched the curveball. That's leading to a lot more swings and misses, and a lot more swings and misses outside of the zone. You don't have to just get strikes in the zone. He's kind of figured out how to put together and sequence those 3 pitches. And it's the first time in his career that he's actually had an off-speed pitch that he's thrown in games, so consistently. So I think the addition of that split finger, the added command, and I really do think it's command more than necessarily control, and then some of the control gains from his last season, even with the athletics. I think Boyle, is sort of one of these big, tall, late developing starting pitchers. And we've seen a lot of these guys that are over 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". He's actually 6'8", and it takes a little bit longer. It takes longer to get all that stuff synced up. But so far, the results have been good. And we've even had a little bit of a sample at the major league level already this season. So I think this is a guy that could come up and have a big impact for him.
Yeah, he's got big stuff. So does Jacob Misiorowski with the Brewers. He has exceptional stuff, really. I mean, and it's stuff that's gotten even better since last year. And now he's throwing more strikes too. He's another big guy. He's 6'7". He gets tremendous extension. He comes at hitters from a low release height, so everything plays up. Starting with that high spin fastball that's sitting in the upper 90s as a starter this year. He's been up to 103 miles an hour. So that's an electric fastball. He has two outstanding breaking balls. One is a slider in the low 90s. The other is a legitimate curveball in the mid 80s. And not that he really needed another pitch, but where the stuff has gotten better this year is the changeup. Last year was a below average pitch. This year it's not consistent, but he's flashing some quality changeups with sink and fade. But the biggest step forward this year for Jacob Misiorowski has been his control. He walked 14% of batters last year between AA and AAA. This year in AAA, it's 10%, still higher than ideal, but he is throwing a lot more strikes. And I've always maintained that the Brewers should continue to develop Misiorowski as a starter for as long as possible. I know a lot of people think he's not a starter or they just want him to move to the bullpen because his stuff can be so electric and dominant in a shorter, high leverage closer type role. So I can see why. But when you have a pitcher with his kind of stuff that you find in a number one or a number two starter, I think you have to give him a little bit more time. A 6'7" guy with those long arms, long legs, that gangly frame that he's still learning to control and synchronize and repeat to throw more consistent strikes. It can take time for that to happen. I mean, Randy Johnson I think he led the league in walks 3 years in a row. Didn't really totally click for him until his mid to late 20s. I'm not saying he's Randy Johnson 2.0. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Brewers are continuing to develop him as a starter and should continue to keep him in that role. He's still just 23 years old, and the early signs this year of his control improving have been really, really encouraging.
I just wanted to add one thing there on Misiorowski, which really kind of jumped out to me. If you haven't watched his most recent start, I would recommend it against the one he had against the Memphis Redbirds. He really pitched. He was sitting in the high 90s throughout the game, right? He gave up a solo homer to Thomas Sagasi in the first inning and then really was kind of dominant. But the thing that really jumped out about it is, and this is something you want to see in a starting pitcher, like when Ben talks about his development as a starter, he was sitting in the high 90s. Sagasi came up in the third in a key situation, and all of a sudden it was 101 kind of whenever he wanted it. So 300 plus mile an hour pitches against Sagasi. Then it just kind of goes back, settles back into high 90s, kind of dominating that way. Then he gets to the fifth inning, 75 pitches or so into the game. He gives up a single. Then he gives up to Brian Torres, single to Thomas Sagasi. So all of a sudden there's runners on second and third with 2 outs. Luke and Baker, the cleanup hitter for Memphis, at the plate. And Misiorowski reaches back for 6 straight 100-plus mile an hour fastballs, including that 103 mile an hour pitch. He's a guy who he had it in there all game. He just used it when he needed it. At 78 pitches into the game, he threw 103 miles an hour. I was watching that, and I couldn't help but think about that's something that you would see Justin Verlander do, where it's like, hey, I might cruise along. I know it sounds crazy if a guy's sitting 98, but 3, 4, 5 miles an hour below my maximum. But when I need it, I can pull it out. And that really showed kind of that development as a pitcher.
So we've got questions flowing in about some other arms. I'm going to start with Noah Schultz for Geoff after we hit a quick break. FT fam, let's talk about the HOF app. If you're into parlays, but sometimes you're missing the mark more than you would like to, can I introduce you to some serious analytics on an app that is easy to read and comprehend? And I'm sitting next to a man who knows how to place a parlay.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is breaking down a parlay with this Hall of Fame app. There's the situations that you'll find easier to do. It's very helpful and understanding. And if you like, gambling, sometimes this is really good to know. So get on there, get on that Hall of Fame app and check it out.
Yeah, this is info that will help you, okay? With a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 five-star reviews, safe to say that HOF has already helped a lot of people bet smarter. For a limited time only, FT listeners can get a 7-day free trial and 50% off their first month when they use code FOUL at checkout. Download the HOF app on iOS or Android. Enter code FOUL and you're all set. Okay, we're back. Let's hit fan questions. First one is for Geoff. How concerning is Noah Schultz's start? And Geoff, I'll give you a little more context from what I hear often on Foul Territory. I, of course, sit next to AJ Pierzynski very often. He's super dialed in on the White Sox, including their prospects. And he's like, I don't want to sound get off my lawn old school, but the way that some arms are babied is getting out of control. So what kind of concern level do you have for Noah? And do you have any worries about the way that an arm like that barely gets to go deep into a game for the first, 2-3 years of his pro career?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was a concern coming into the year. Of all the positives you can take away from Noah Schultz's season thus far, he has been getting into the 5th and 6th inning far more frequently than he had because he had never done it previously, I think his entire career, maybe even dating back to high school, actually. So, I mean, I've watched a lot of Schultz's starts. I wrote about him last week. There's been a little bit of a velocity dip this season. I think some of that is the fact that he's throwing more pitches per start. Obviously, the deeper you get into starts, your velocity most of the time is going to dip unless you're Jacob Misiorowski. But I still think you watch this guy, you watch the arm action. It's a wicked sinker just in terms of, how much arm side run it creates. It does kill some lift and has some true sink on it. It's a heavy sweeper. He's taken a couple of inches a sweep off of it this year, just based on previous years. I don't know if that's led to less swing and miss. It's still a pretty good pitch. He's using the cutter more often than he had previously. He's almost using it like in lieu of a fastball at times in fastball counts. And the changeup has actually gotten a decent amount of whiffs. I think a lot of it is just command. I think a lot of it is just learning to navigate lineups, a second time through, and eventually sort of maybe get some opportunities to see how that third time through penalty affects him. But, I think overall the stuff is still there. If, you like the pitcher and the prospect that Noah Schultz was a year ago, I think you should still be in. There's nothing in terms of the game tape that jumps off to me as anything more than just a guy trying to figure out a couple of new pitches in different counts, trying things out, and, a very unusual arm action and a lot of movement that I think even at AA level, you're going to get a lot of hitters. They're just going to lay off of stuff like that too. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out, but the stuff is certainly there. He is showing a little bit more horsepower to get deeper into games, which, I do think is a positive sign.
That's good. And my long-term question on the way that they've handled this, like Geoff mentioned, is should they have been doing that from the start, JJ? If you're worried about pitches or innings, is there a case to be made that you let a guy who had been doing that, obviously, leading up to his pro career, keep doing that, even if you do want to cut his season significantly short, right? Like, let's say, whatever, I don't have the numbers in front of me. You're like, this guy's going 100 innings year one as a pro for me. Does it have to be 3 inning stints? Or if he's got it and he's got stress-free innings, can you let him eat a little 5-6? Because now you look back and you're like, this guy wasn't allowed to do this for, what was it, Geoff? 2 years or was it 1 year? Either way, it felt like eternity. It was 2 years. Okay. So JJ, the case, and obviously I'm being persuaded by the guy sitting next to me all the time from AJ, is let this guy eat sometimes or you'll forget how to go deep in games and it's not good for your long-term training.
I can't help but go back to think about Dylan Bundy, who did it maybe too much in high school, but was really working deep in games. And then when the Orioles brought him in, they're like, hey, we want to limit his innings. So 3, I don't care. There were times where he was being pulled after 3 perfect innings early in his career. It didn't obviously do a ton for Dylan Bundy. I think at the end of the day, you don't want pitchers to throw when they're clearly fatigued, when their mechanics are breaking down. But my personal opinion, and I know I've talked to some people about this in the game who seem to share this, is we've just gone through an era. We used to be in an era where pitchers were overused. No one in pro baseball, especially no minor league pitcher ever gets overused now. And maybe we've gone too far the other way. I think that asking guys to pitch and to figure out how to get through a lineup a second time, maybe even every now and then when a third time, is going to help you in the long run. And I don't see a whole lot of evidence that holding guys back for years at a time keeps them a whole lot healthier either.
That's my problem. I'm with you there. I mean, just mix it up, try something else. It doesn't seem like that format is necessarily working, but whatever. We'll see what happens here with Schultz and with others that are being babied. Ben, let's get to another fan question here live in the chat. And the question is from Lucas Livingston. With the red hot start from Johnny Farmelo coming back from injury, is there a chance that he becomes the top guy in the Mariners farm system?
He could be. The hard thing for him, and this is not a problem for the Mariners, is that they have one of the best farm systems in baseball. I think it's going to be hard for him to leapfrog over Cole Young and Colt Emerson, who we have ranked ahead of him now. Lázaro Montes is pretty good, but yeah, I mean, Johnny Farmelo he's the best athlete of that group, and he's a really well-rounded player too. I like the hand-eye coordination, the hitting ability. He's really strong too. I think there's power in there. Plus runner, can play a true center field. So checks a lot of boxes that you like to see. He just hasn't been healthy. He's been dinged up quite a bit early on in his very young career, but I'm very high on Johnny Farmelo.
Great question. Love getting the questions early. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I see more, so we'll get to them later on in the show. When we swing back, we're going to go over prospects that need a little bit more attention, lesser known names that you should be keeping an eye on. Trying to keep a big picture here on Hot Sheet and let you know about anybody that, should be on your radar. So we'll do that next. If you're a card collector or you'd like to get into card collecting, may I suggest Arena Club and slab packs, which means that you can rip the packs digitally and, of course, get the card that you want. It's also the most trusted name in the game, and I would rather rip packs these days on my phone than sit next to you and have you grabbing one of my physical packs if I was grabbing one.
Yeah, you don't need me grabbing your packs, because last time you grabbed one, it ended up like this card. So let's not have that, and that's why Arena Club is great. They send them to you in these fancy protectors like this Scott Braun card that we have here, and they'll come safe. They're already graded, or you could do like I do and just leave my cards in the showroom and never actually see them physically.
Yeah.
But they're safe, protected, and if I want to sell them, I can.
Buy, sell, trade. They offer full transparency, showing every card in the slab pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy. Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FAL and use code FAL. Hey, we're back. And next up, what we want to do is run through 3 lists of 5 prospects that are maybe lesser known names that you need to keep an eye on. 5 prospects to watch. Ben Badler, kick it off.
Yeah, these are guys who are outside the top 100, but for me, I think all have a chance to jump in there at some point, if not this year, then in the near future. One of them is Rainiel Rodriguez, who's number 1 on our hot sheet right now at baseballamerica.com. Cardinals international signing last year for a few $100,000 out of the Dominican Republic. He's interesting because he was a really late add to their class. Last year, he spent some time living in Pennsylvania, signed out of the DR. He just rakes. I mean, he's 5'10". He's not that tall, but he has huge power, and it plays in games. He's already got 6 home runs in his first 10 games in the Arizona Complex League this year as an 18-year-old. Definitely more of an offensive-oriented player. Going to have to wait and see what some of the reports are this year, updated on his defense. But if he can stay behind the plate, that's a really exciting bat to have behind there. Bishop lets in too with the Brewers, pitching really well at high A. It's a low to mid 90s fastball, outstanding extension, still lanky. I think there's still strength projection in there for his stuff to tick up and for another gear to come. Good slider, athletic. He's just been on a very steady upward trend, it seems like, every year over the last few years. And then a couple Mets guys who have been outstanding so far this year. One is Jonah Tong, a right-handed pitcher in Double A. I think he needs to be in the top 100 conversation very soon. He's been dominating Double A as a 21-year-old. Huge strikeout numbers. That fastball comes at you from this really high, over-the-top slot. It's not overpowering velocity. I mean, he can run it up to 97, which is pretty good, but it really stands out for the life on that pitch. A ton of carry up in the zone to miss bats when he elevates, and then that true top-to-bottom curveball that he throws with huge depth, misses a lot of bats. And then this year, his changeup has been a really effective bat missing pitch for him too. So I think you're looking at a true 3-pitch starting pitcher who should miss a lot of bats as he continues to move up. Him and AJ Ewing have been really impressive this year for the Mets. I mean, Ewing was repeating low A at the beginning of the year. He was dominating there, promote him to high A, just keeps hitting. It's just a very hitterish look, a very sweet left-handed swing, good hand-eye coordination, uses the whole field, plus runner in center field. So power still somewhat of a question there, like how much juice is he going to have? But if you have a center fielder with plus running ability who can get on base at a high clip, give you 10, 15 home runs a year, that's a really valuable player. And then Bryce Cunningham, who the Yankees drafted last year out of Vanderbilt, is pitching really well in high A. That whole high A staff that they have right now is full, guys like Carlos LaGrange, Ben Hess, full of these extra large human beings who have big time stuff and have been pitching really well there. Cunningham probably has even a tick lighter stuff than those two other guys I mentioned. It's good stuff, but where he separates himself is his pitchability. It's a really advanced feel for pitching to go with. Also, good stuff. Another guy with a high carry fastball and a really, really effective changeup too.
You're up, Geoff.
Yeah. So for my list, I ended up stealing one from Ben with Rodriguez. Cover the Cardinals, year round for us. Handle them in the handbook, and echo Ben's sentiments in terms of how strong the bat is, how well he's performed. It's just been great quality of contact. But my top name up here is Tyson Harden, who I think is a true sleeper. I mean, a 12th rounder last year, was a reliever at Mississippi State for a few seasons. The Brewers have actually seemed to find sort of a successful pipeline from Mississippi State relievers to starters. Casey Hunt is a guy that kind of broke out for him last year. Hunt is a good prospect. I think Tyson Harden is a much better prospect. Start to dig into some of the pitch metrics here behind the performance this season. He's a guy with a really low release four-seam fastball, and he's not the smallest guy. He's 6'2", 6'3". It's about an average size starter. Good velocity on that fastball, above average ride for sort of the release height. It's just from metrics, it's probably a plus fastball. It's been performing like that. I think you can sort of take a look at, what he's done over 7 starts in the Midwest League with little starting experience, obviously, at the college level. Now coming in as a professional, high A is, solid competition, especially for a guy like this. 1.16 ERA, 1.88 FIP. Not walking anybody. The command has been excellent. Secondaries are more average, but everything sort of just waterfalls off that four-seam fastball, and it really works. Mike Sirota is a guy that the Dodgers went out of their way to acquire. They had initially drafted him. He ended up not signing back in 2021. Ends up on campus at Northeastern for 2 years. Is one of the best underclassmen in the country. The bottom sort of fell out a little bit during his draft year. The numbers weren't great. He struggled against sort of lower mid-major competition a lot of the time. Ended up dropping a little bit in the draft. The Reds, draft him. Ends up with the Dodgers. He gets into the Dodgers system. We should have known there was something up here that they were so aggressive in trying to acquire this guy. Sirota's always hit the ball pretty hard, dating back to his freshman year in college. He's always had really good plate discipline and solid to maybe above average bat to ball skills. The angles on contact are way up this year. He's showing the ability to consistently pull the ball in the air, which is something that he struggled with previously, particularly in college. Just another one of these Dodgers success stories. I think he's a guy that's coming up more and more in our top 100 conversations. Despite the fact that he is a college guy that beat up on A-ball competition, now in high A and sort of that, $100 million outfield with Zaire Hope and Josue Apala. Sorry, tripping over myself here. And then a couple of other guys that were kind of breakouts. Henry Balty's a guy that's always had tools, dating back to when he was drafted back in 2022 in the second round by the Athletics. What we're seeing this year is he's showing a little bit more plate skills. The contact numbers are way up. The strikeout rate, and this was a guy that, for a career had like a 34% strikeout rate over a sizable amount of plate appearances, now down to 26%. He's walking more. He's getting to more of that power. He has that speed. He's a really exciting player. If the contact has gotten even to like a fringe average level, he's another guy that I think could really take off. And then for my last name is Braxton Bragg, who kind of a guy that popped up for us a little bit during spring training. He was in Josh's great article he does every year where he lays out some names of players that scouts are talking about. Bragg was among those guys. So far, the performance has been outstanding in Double-A with Chesapeake, and the numbers, sort of speak for themselves. Behind that, really good pitch mix. It's a mid-90s sinker with a ton of arm side run. I mean, he's averaging 18 to 19 inches of arm side run every time he's throwing that pitch. Does mix in a four-seamer, changeup guy as well, and then has a few different breaking ball shapes. But it's primary sort of sinker, changeup, right-hander. But it's a really interesting arm, and I do think that Bragg could be one of these guys that's moving up very quickly in the Orioles' top 30 that will be coming out in a couple of weeks.
So when I jump in on mine, there are a couple of pitchers here who really do stand out. We talked about with the Rays and Joe Boyle. I would bring up that TJ Nichols is another guy who kind of fits this mold. He was good, but he also struggled with strike throwing some when he was in college. And here you go this year. Nichols is walked 3 batters in 32 and a third innings, 2/3 innings, 45 strikeouts, 3 walks with big stuff. So he's one that clearly jumps out. Speaking of Rays, Braylon Guerrero, that's one of the more, I would say, prominent names on this list. Kind of came into the year as a fringe of the top 100 candidate. Kind of got off to a late start this year, but has been really mashing since he got to low A, just as we expected. Sean Linion, really another one of these Dodger breakout guys who, in his case, he just got a spot start in AAA. It's been mainly an A-ball. It's a really good changeup that obviously when a guy has success like that in the lower levels, you want to see how well it's going to play at the higher levels. But the pieces are there for him to be yet another Dodgers pitching find. The guy that probably isn't talked enough about is David Davalillo, who Rangers pitcher who led the minors in ERA last year, has been even better so far this year. Want to see him get to Double-A before too long, but the last bad start that he had was August of 2023. That's the last time he gave up more than 3 runs in a start, I believe. And Gage Jump has already made 1 promotion up to Double-A. LSU, pitcher who has really kind of in a much improved A's farm system. The A's are doing some better things in the minors, and Jump is one of the key guys to keep an eye out for that.
Great stuff from all 3 of you. And of course, as you're running through your lists, more questions are flowing through. So let's do this. We're going to keep an eye on the ones that we didn't get to, and we'll try and save some for next week. So that encourages you to stick around for a week from now and join us again. But let's finish with one question for Ben. So Ben, let's go for your take on Yairo Padilla in the St. Louis Cardinals organization. A question here from Aaron. Last one here with a minute to go.
You there, Ben? If he's not, I'll go. I'll go then.
Ben, I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yairo Padilla is another really good international prospect for the Cardinals to go with Rainiel Rodriguez on that Florida Complex League team that they have. Shortstop, very young signing for his class. He's still 17 years old. Long frame, 6'2", more strength projection to come. Switch hitter. pretty advanced hitter for his age. Good rhythm, balance at the plate. Recognizes pitches pretty well. Has a good idea of the strike zone. Not like impact power right now, but you can definitely see the strength projection in his frame, and very good athlete too. Plus runner, plus arm, good actions at shortstop. So a lot of really good foundational traits to build upon for a young switch hitting shortstop.
Hey, great stuff on the questions from everyone in the YouTube chat today. That's it for us. Like I said, more of them coming your way next week. We'll kind of gather some of these up and we can do a little mailbox segment on Hot Sheet to give it more time. We love it live. Great list on guys that you should be paying attention to. If you missed the top of the show on pitchers that could make an impact in 2025, I highly encourage it. Go to baseballamerica.com for info all day, every day in the prospect world and leading up to the draft in July as well. We will see everyone next week on Hot Sheet.